Think it's time we rise up, people. It's time's up, people. You can talk all you want, but it won't change a thing. I wanna know what you do.
On a grander scale is a lot of these laws are federal laws. Those are the RESPA laws, and you hear about the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Those are the laws that protect homeowners in the loss mitigation process. Those are laws in all 50 states. In Maryland, that's a defense to foreclosure if the servicer violates those laws. But that's also a defense, it should be in all the other states or states that are non-judicial foreclosure, the homeowner can sue proactively. So that's why we need to network with attorneys across the United States.
Hello, and welcome to the Up and Up. In previous shows and production, we've made it one of our missions to give our followers tons of information surrounding control fraud and mortgage fraud through our podcast, The New Untouchables, The Pecora Files, a collaboration with the producers of The Con. If this information is news to you, this systemic elite fraud resulted in 18 million people having their houses stolen by banks and Wall Street across the country. And we know it's going to take a mass movement, right? If we're going to stop this and actually draw a line. So now what? We often talk about the need to create a mass movement, but what does that look like, right? Where do we start? So today we're here for a deeper dive on how people across the country can coordinate to create a national legal team that will focus on modus operandi to stop control fraud and get everyone affected by this the justice that they deserve. Joining today is Liz Johnson. We've talked to Liz Johnson before, and we also have Beth Jacobson of Strategic Housing Solutions. Welcome back, Liz Johnson. Can you just kind of give us a little quick reminder? I know people probably watched the last episode with you in it, but kind of refresh our memory. Who are you, Liz?
Well, thank you so much for having us. I really appreciate it. We are in Maryland, first off, and I'm the executive director of the Strategic Housing Solutions. And it is a nonprofit, and we're located in Maryland, but I'm also affiliated with the National Action Network that's founded by Reverend Al Sharpton, and also the NAACP, because I've been working with Beth and others on collaborating on trying to get people justice who have been illegally foreclosed on. So we continue with that mission, and we're so very delighted to be a part of your show so that we can spread the word and get other people to jump on this bandwagon to help themselves.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming back. I always appreciate having a conversation with you, Liz. You're just wealth of information and a ball of fire. And today we have Beth Jacobson is joining us today. Beth, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I work with Liz Johnson at Strategic Housing Solutions, but prior to that, starting in 1998 through December 2007, I actually worked at Wells Fargo. I was in the belly of the beast. Shortly thereafter that I left Wells Fargo, I blew the whistle on Wells Fargo due to its reverse redlining. Baltimore City sued Wells Fargo due to reverse redlining. I was able to connect all the dots. My affidavit was used. Eventually, the Department of Justice, DOJ, took up the cause, what resulted in a settlement, I believe it was August 2012, of $175 million that Wells Fargo settled with DOJ due to reverse redlining without ever admitting any wrongdoing. As I said, I left Wells Fargo approximately 2007. In 2009, I began assisting homeowners. I worked at a nonprofit then, and I was a foreclosure prevention coordinator. What I did was train attorneys in foreclosure defense. You have to realize that this was all new with the foreclosures. Obviously, there have been foreclosures in the past, but what was happening now, starting really in the end of 2007, beginning of 2008, with the Great Recession, is there were so many people being foreclosed on. Laws were changing quickly. Things were happening. New things were coming out about the fraud. This was all stuff that wasn't taught in law school. So I was actually training attorneys from Maryland to California in foreclosure defense. And usually I would always start my training that if you can't understand that the attorneys for the banks are going to present fraudulent documents and they're going to lie, then you cannot handle foreclosure defense. And then from there, I'd go into it. And all different parts of it, including loan modifications, what's a predatory loan. I just train the attorneys in doing that. And then since then, I also have testified as an expert witness. So a lot of people are out there saying they're expert witnesses. I'm a court qualified expert witness, meaning that the judges have recognized that I am an expert witness. I've testified in cases, again, from Maryland, California, and in between. And so I've been working with Strategic Housing Solutions, helping homeowners fight illegal foreclosures, even prior to the foreclosure being filed, the foreclosure's filed, and literally people calling, I have a sale in an hour, what can we do? So the whole spectrum with that. That's my background.
I even just, there's so many questions I want to, and I know we're specifically talking about one thing today, but I hope that I have the opportunity to talk to you again separately just about all of that amazing work. But right now we're here to talk about Strategic Housing Solutions and kind of the idea of this legal team, which is part of the broader framework, right? And so essentially, let's kind of just broad brush, or I guess overview. As an overview, what is the goal and what is the function of the legal team?
Well, what we're looking to do is recruit more attorneys. We have a few attorneys that are working with us now, but we see a tsunami of foreclosures. They're going to start happening in Maryland and across the country in February and March of 2022 due to COVID. And so we kind of have three buckets of people. You have those people that already lost their homes. You have those people that were in foreclosure pre-COVID, and then you have those borrowers that are going to be facing foreclosure post-COVID. So the pre-COVID and the post-COVID, there may be similar defenses that they may have, but there's specific defenses that somebody post-COVID would have. And then you have the people that already lost their home. And we want to say to those people, do not give up hope that we may be able to review your documents. And if we find fraud, and depending on the type of fraud, sometimes there's no statute of limitations as to frauds. There may be something that we can do. We may be able to go back, especially when we homeowners start to learn and we start training attorneys that these banks set out so the homeowner would fail. So there's a lot of homeowners, when we review the documents, we find that there was fraud at the very beginning, that the homeowner was put into a loan that they could not afford from day one. And so because these foreclosure courts are called courts of equity, and if you literally think of the scale of justice, so you have a scale on the left, a scale on the right, and the scale on the right, let's say that's the homeowner. You put a pebble down on that scale and say, okay, the homeowner didn't make their payment. That's what they did wrong. And so that scale tilts a little bit, saying that the homeowner did something wrong. But then on the left side, where the servicer and the banks are, they're like, okay, first pebble down is that they were put into a predatory loan that they could not make the payments. Put another pebble down. The homeowner submitted 25 applications for a loan modification, and they were denied every time, incorrectly denied in violation of RESPA. Then put another pebble on there. Oh, look what we found in land records. 10 fraudulent assignments. Another pebble down. Look at that note. It doesn't contain the correct endorsements. Oh, another pebble down. They don't actually have the original note. So when you look at the scales of justice and they're tipping to the side of the bank, meaning that the bank has committed so much more fraud than the homeowner. That's the court of equity. And so under the legal theory, and again, I'm going to say this because I know the bank lawyers are out there watching this and they're ready to get me for the unauthorized practice of law. I am not a lawyer and this is not legal advice. However, if somebody walks into a court and they cause the damage, they cannot sue to benefit from that damage. So under that theory, the banks cause the damage to the homeowner. They cannot reap the benefits by stealing their house.
Right.
So that's a legal theory. So those are the people that have already been foreclosed on. So then you have the people facing foreclosure now that kind of got a bit of a reprieve because the courts were shut down for about a year due to COVID. Although most people don't realize 6 months into COVID, foreclosure sales were happening. During a time there was a worldwide pandemic, there were restrictions in place as to social distancing and wearing masks. And in Maryland, any state building had to have a place for somebody to wash their hands, and sales were happening outside. So that wasn't done. So all these sales were happening illegally. And then you have the people that were put into these forbearances due to COVID, and they were non-federally backed loans, which means they were not under the CARES Act. So there's all this disinformation out there, and a lot of it is politicians are putting it out there. People are saying this, saying, "Oh, don't worry, you can get a forbearance under the CARES Act," but the CARES Act only applied to federally backed loans, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, VA, and FHA. So if you didn't have a federally backed loan, and right now I'm going to ask people watching this, do you know who owns your loan? I'm guaranteeing 90% of the people out there do not know who owns their loan. They know who they make their mortgage payment to. That's the servicer. That is not the owner/investor of your loan. So 50% of the people that got forbearances out there, their loan is not a federally backed loan, meaning they weren't covered under the CARES Act. So some of these forbearance, when they're privately held as securitized loans, if somebody will get a forbearance for 6 months, month 7 comes, guess what? They owe all 6 months plus 7 months of payment. If they can't come up with 7 months of payments, which could be $15,000, $16,000, $17,000, guess what? They're in foreclosure now. So that's what we're looking at. People were getting incorrect information, and the attorneys that we're working with have already started filing lawsuits. One of them is against the servicer PHH, which formerly known as Aquin. They were telling homeowners of FHA insured loans that if you're already delinquent on your loan, you didn't qualify for a forbearance. That's not correct. The CARES Act specifically states without regard to delinquency. And so after numerous letters being sent, alerting the attorneys to PHH, hey, you have to give a forbearance, they didn't do it. So now we have to sue. So part of what the legal team wants to do, and getting it out through the various teams that Liz is setting up, is to inform homeowners of their rights, because just because a servicer told you something doesn't mean it's true. And then we want to gather the legal team of attorneys, paralegals, to look at the files that we have and what can we do to help the homeowner. Because my fear is we are going to have, as I use the word tsunami, of foreclosures being filed, and we are not going to have enough attorneys there to represent the homeowners, because that's what happened during the Great Recession. There weren't enough attorneys to help the homeowners, and the homeowners went in there pro se. And pro se meaning that they were representing themselves. And a lot of these homeowners I talk to, they're very bright, they're smart, they're well read, but they don't understand how to fight these cases in court. And in Maryland, if you file your motion to dismiss a foreclosure case where you assert your defenses, if you file it 1 day late, you've just waived your right to assert a defense. So those are things that the homeowner isn't told.
Wow. Yeah, and I think, that's a lot of things. And, when you're talking about, especially people not, even, otherwise well-informed, intelligent people, not understanding how to navigate the system. I mean, it is you're navigating a different system when you talk about the court of equity and the balance on either side. All I could think of in that time, I know it makes sense in that context. All I could think of is this one pebble being like you, like me on the one side, and on the other side being all of the resources of the banks and Wall Street and all this kind of stuff, and just kind of, and so what I would envision the legal team being, at least, kind of within that context, is some way to balance out, what kind of information and what kind of tools you have in order to fight this, right? So coming together and making your one pebble a little stronger, have a little more weight, because you have people on your team, on your side, who know how to handle it and navigate that system and can join together and things like that. Amazing, absolutely amazing. So, my next question was going to be, why start with the legal team? But I feel like you've already kind of started to establish that as well. If we could kind of just get a little bit more in depth with it. This is, there is a broader system with a few more teams. Why is the legal team the most important one to really focus on right now and start with?
Liz, did you want to go with?
Okay, I can go with that. Sure. I didn't want to interrupt the rhythm because that was good stuff. But in any event, the legal team is the team that's going to be necessary to start all the other teams, put them in motion. Let me explain, go back a little bit. In addition to this legal team, and even to go back just a little bit into the other show, but just to recap, when we found out that one of our the attorneys involved with our movement, a judge told him that he knew nothing about. The judge says, "I know nothing about what you're saying when you're saying that people are stealing houses. All of what you're saying is really crazy. I don't believe any of it. Judgment for the bank." I'm just synopsizing that.
Right.
And so then I thought, the judge is right. We are not talking about this in one voice. Everybody, we have little silos. We got someone over here who has a case. They go into court to get the bucket. They lose. Someone else, and all these attorneys, they've got ideas, and they lose. But we could not get 50 people to send a letter to Nancy Pelosi, because we're not. Although there are thousands of people out there who are really are against these illegal foreclosures, they're not hearing from us and yelling and screaming like Black Lives Matter. We all work in our little silos. So I thought, well, we need everybody. We need everybody in on this fight. But then people want to help, and they come to me and say, well, whatever I can do, let me know. Well, in the past, I really didn't know. And I thought, well, how can we involve everybody in this fight? So then we got together and we said, well, we're just going to break it down into all the components that are needed to win any battle. Not only this battle of foreclosures, but any battle needs to be coordinated and organized. And as Bernie Sanders said, if you want to beat organized money, you have to organize people. So how do we do that? So then how do we get it so that everybody sees that they can play a role in this? Mm-hmm. Let's organize this whole movement into teams. Let's have the financial team. Let's have the legal team. Let's have the faith-based team. Let's have the Spanish-speaking team. And then surely with all of these 12 or 13 teams, people will see where they can fit in so they can put their shoulder to this wheel. Okay, but then we've got to have a goal. What's our goal going to be? Our goal is going to be whatever the legal team decides needs to be our goal. But when that legal team decides that we're going to fight fight for a certain cause, we need people yelling and screaming for that cause. Mm-hmm. But the legal team is the team that's going to have to go into court and decide that we're going to, for instance, as Beth was saying, we're going to get this kind of justice for people who've already lost their homes, which is my favorite one, where we talk about getting monetary damages if there's fraud in the case of the person who's already lost their home. So when the legal team comes up with that battle, they've got to have the public behind them advocating for that remedy. They've got to have people who are saying and writing to their congressman, writing to the finance committee, writing to everybody who holds sway over that decision that the legal team made, that they're going to be fighting for in court. Because judges rule with impunity. They're ruling with any way they want to, because they don't hear anybody talking about this. And it's incumbent upon the people to be able to say, okay, the legal team came up with that solution. We're going to fight for it. We're going to have the faith. We're going to have the churches and every member of that church sending out letters. We're going to have all of these various people on these teams advocating for what the legal team decides. I know that's a little bit wordy, but
no, I love it. You know what? I think it's one thing that I tend to come back to with people is, if you haven't been, if you're not aware of how organizing works on a very hands-on and deep level, and people look at it superficially, and you really know when somebody is ready to get down in the dirt when they have all of the details kind of sussed out. Okay, well, then we're going to need to do this, and we're going to need to do this, and this is where, because it does take a lot of people in a lot of different roles, and I'm just blown away every time I look at kind of the structure that you guys have set up, because it's very well thought out. It's very very thorough. So let me just ask, what are you guys working on right now? What's the focus of the legal team's efforts at the moment?
Well, one of our focuses right now is to recruit more attorneys. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're working on, and getting those attorneys ready to handle the foreclosures that are coming. And one of the things specifically in Maryland that we're looking at, Maryland has a law for mediation. If the homeowner requests mediation, but we have good laws on the book that state the banks have to present a certain amount of documents. And if they don't submit those documents, then the homeowner can go into court and ask the judge to dismiss the whole foreclosure case because the bank didn't comply with Maryland's mediation law. Mm-hmm. I have handled probably well over 200 mediations since I've been doing this, and not once has the plaintiff provided the required documents, and not once has the judge dismissed the case because of that. So what we want to do, if we can get all the attorneys fighting the same battle, because right there, that the house isn't set up for sale yet. We're still at the beginning stage of the foreclosure process in Maryland. So let's go after the mediation process. And part of what I see is we need to educate the attorneys that are fighting for the homeowners, because they don't know this. A lot of times the attorneys will tell the homeowner, you just go to mediation yourself, because 99.9% of the time there's no resolution. Well, there's a lot of information that can be gathered then. And so we're trying to inform the attorneys what we need to do, kind of work together to do this. Because if you look at the substitute trustees, and that's the plaintiffs in cases in Maryland, those are the attorneys, they all get together. They all have seminars together. They all talk. But when you talk about the attorneys that are representing the homeowners, they don't talk. There's so few of them. So we want to organize them together and share ideas. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. Look, here's a really good template for a motion to dismiss the foreclosure case based on the failure of the plaintiffs to comply with Maryland mediation. Boom, done. We don't have to keep doing that. Mm-hmm. And then the more times more attorneys are out there bringing it in front of the judge, it's not the first time the judge is then hearing that. We actually have a case that is going up in front of Maryland's Court of Special Appeals within the next 6 months, addressing this whole issue of the mediation. That would be something that Liz would call out to make a call saying, look, we need people there, either whether it's going to be virtual or in person, to show up in that, to show these judges that there's homeowners concerned about that. But the other thing that we're looking to do on a grander scale is a lot of these laws are federal laws. Those are the RESPA laws, and the you hear about the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Those are the laws that protect homeowners in the loss mitigation process. Those are laws in all 50 states. In Maryland, that's a defense to foreclosure if the servicer violates those laws. But that's also a defense, it should be in all the other states or states that are non-judicial foreclosure, the homeowner can sue proactively. So that's why we need to network with attorneys across the United States. I also personally help homeowners in just about every state. I have homeowners where I look at the cases and see just so many violations of RESPA and Truth in Lending Act and other federal law. But the problem is I can't find an attorney in their area to take on the case. And so we're kind of doing it's what we're doing here in Maryland that we can help the homeowners here, because we're here, we know the foreclosure law, but we also want to connect with attorneys across the country. Because again, if you're suing a servicer for a RESPA violation, that complaint's going to look pretty much the same in all 50 states. On top of that is getting information out to these attorneys, because the Department of Justice has recently settled with several of these servicers, including Fay Servicing and SLS, with a consent order saying, DOJ is saying to them, you violated RESPA. Well, guess what? These servicers are still violating RESPA because 90% of the attorneys don't know there's a consent order out there. So that's it should be an easier case to win if you tell the judge, look, this is what SLS is doing to my client, which is exactly the same thing the DOJ just said, you've got to pay however many millions of dollars it was because you violated RESPA by doing this, SLS. So judge, you're doing the exact same thing. Let's connect the dots and award my client money. So we actually have 2 lawsuits going on now, one against SLS, one against Fay Servicing, where Fay Servicing and SLS are doing the exact same things that the CFPB said to them in the last 6 months. You are no longer allowed to do this, but they're still doing it.
And if I can just add to that, and the way that the team effort works in that regard is once the legal team reveals that as an issue, then everybody else springs into action. The writing team writes a press release and also a letter that the faith-based team, we've got all the information on every church member in the country. We've got their telephone, we've got their email addresses, And so we can just hit the button and say, send this letter to all the people that the political action team says has an effect on this decision, because the political action team will have the addresses of the Senate Finance Committee, the House Finance Committee, everyone in every state. That's all they've done is call that information. So right away, we know to whom to send this information, where it's going to be vital and be listened to by all of these people who are saying, hold up, legislator, hold up, judge, we're looking at this. Mm-hmm. And so that's how the teams work. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's wonderful. Like I said, I love you. You got all just this bing bang boom, and push that button and kind of all these levers start to turn, as it should be. It's amazing that you guys are. I feel like you're just starting out that way already. You have such a jump on so many other organizations that kind of come together and figure it out along the way. You guys are like, nope, got it.
I love how you put that together when you say all these levers start to turn, and that's exactly right, because now, no matter who calls me and says, I want to help, I have said, okay, I want you to go on our website, pick a team. And even once we even have instructions for how the teams work, how they get into motion. Because so many times you put together a team, sometimes people call them committees, and they just move and they just sit in place because they don't know which way to go. But we also have instructions out. This is how you get your team moving towards the goal.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. And very clear goals and kind of how these things all work together. It sounds like that's very well sussed out. So let me talk about, I just want to ask as an aside, as someone who is, I'm a serial volunteer. I jump in and I want to do as much as I possibly can. But of course, we all know that, there are different kind of levels of participation, right? There are some people who only have, a half an hour a week to hop on a call, or, something, or maybe they have a few hours a week that they want to participate. There's different levels of kind of participation. And so if we're taking specifically, say, the legal team, I'm sure this varies for different teams, right? But, if we're talking specifically about the legal team, what is the expectation of someone's participation when they come in there? What kind of time would they need to devote? Or are there levels of participation that are, it sounds to me really just keep people connected and knowing what's happening, even to be involved, knowing what's happening so that you can use that in different states and share it with your, circle, right? Is an amazing thing. So let me just pass it off to you. I'm sorry, I'm getting too wordy with my question. But what are kind of the different levels of participation that people can have in joining the legal team?
Can I just throw something in there, because this works for all the teams. Mm-hmm. Your question is good for all the teams. That's what's so great about it, because like you say, you're a serial volunteer, so am I. So then I wake up in the morning and this is what's on my mind. Yeah. And I go to bed at night. And then there are people who are saying, well, the cow is sick. I got to take the kids to the soccer game. Okay, fine. But all the while, when a lot of times when you put down your modus operandi, a lot of the teams, that's what they've got to do, is just structure it so that when it comes time for them to jump into motion, they've already got their stuff together. For instance, I mentioned the political action team. They already have their names, addresses, and all those kinds of things. They've already got that. So sometimes it really doesn't take much until it's time for you to jump into action. And when the legal team, we say, okay, political action team, to whom should we send this decision? Well, it needs to go to this person, this organization, this organization. We've already got that. So people can really put in as little time or as much time as they want. I think the important thing really is to decide just how that team is going to operate. Mm-hmm. For them to get together and discuss, okay, this is the goal, and this is what we've got to do to participate in that goal. So here's how we're going to do it. And once they get their stuff set up, it's just a matter of time for them to wait for the legal team to tell them what to do, and bam, they go into action. So, you can put in as little time or as much time as you want on deciding how this team is going to operate. Does any of that make sense? I keep asking that.
It makes perfect sense. The reason I asked the question is I think sometimes people are intimidated, especially when everything is so well, very detailed and things like that. And it's a lot of information. So I want to let people know that there are absolutely ways that you can be involved that are not necessarily you know, that there are different levels to participation, so that people aren't intimidated by signing up. You know what I mean? For people who aren't like me and aren't like and you who are serial volunteers.
I would like to add one thing though. When we're talking about the legal team, and I'm talking about we want to recruit attorneys, that's different from volunteers, because these attorneys can get paid. A lot of these homeowners have money in order to pay attorneys. So attorneys, and if we go work with paralegals or other people that may be attending mediation, because you don't have to be a lawyer to attend mediation with homeowners, either in Maryland or DC for that matter, they get paid for that. So when we're talking about recruiting attorneys, we're not asking the attorneys to volunteer. We might have some that are low bono, meaning maybe if the attorney charges $300 an hour, they'd be willing to accept less than that. However, they're gaining from us, the attorney's gaining from us the template for the motions to file, and they're getting training. And when you also file these cases based in federal law, many of them have provisions that if the homeowner wins, the bank has to pay the attorney's fees.
Yeah.
And so I just want to make it clear that our call for attorneys is not a call for pro bono attorneys. Maybe some work may be pro bono, but a lot of it is the attorney's going to get paid. The paralegal is going to get paid. And then one of the things I realized, sometimes people have more money than time. There are people like that. So one way you can help is to donate funds. And I think we have a button on our website. You just hit the button and you can donate funds as well.
Wonderful. And Beth, thank you. I appreciate you clarifying that. That's very, very important to understand. And I think, you know, it kind of leads us to the logical next step, right? How do people get involved? What is the next step for people who want to jump up and do what they can to help out with this cause?
Well, one of the things that's just so important is that that people do join the teams. And to answer your question specifically, we have a website. It's shsmaryland.org. That's S like in Sam, H like in Harry, S like in Sam, Maryland, all one word, .org. They can go onto our website, press a button that says join a team. And we have right now, I'm part of our technology team. Thank God we got April Martin, who is very, very competent, and she's working with our website so that it's user friendly and they can join a team. When they join a team, thank God for the way she's got things set up. I get notice, we call them, and we start setting that team up and letting them know about the other people who want to be on that team. Right now, I even have people, and the thing that's so wonderful about working with Real Progressives is that we want to have people all over the country, you see, and talk about how this whole thing of working together works. Just finding you guys. Look how much capacity now that can be brought to this effort because of us joining with you. It's important that we work together. So that not just in the Maryland people, I've got a team in Milwaukee already working. And so we need lawyers in Milwaukee so that once they join the team and we're working together with you, already the system is working. We've got to join and work together, but that's how they can do it. Just go in and say, join a team. We've broken it down, to let them know what state they're going to be in. So we could have the state where they're going to be doing the same thing in Milwaukee. They're going to be, in Wisconsin, the same thing all over the country. They're going to be organizing like this, but we all come together in one voice. Does that,
Yeah.
Once again.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And
I want to send a shout out to April Martin because she worked so hard. Another diehard volunteer.
Love it. I love it. And Beth, is there anything else that you want to throw in before we wrap it up?
There's just so much. Mm-hmm. So I would just say I'm available if anybody wants to reach out to me. And one of the things that I do through Strategic Housing Solutions is I do free seminars, with Zoom. That's one thing that a positive, I think, that came out of COVID. Since the CARES Act was enacted, immediately I started giving free seminars to explain to people what is a forbearance, when they say who's a federally backed loan, what does that mean? Is just explaining the language. And certainly if there are attorneys that are out there in any state, reach out. And again, you can reach me through the Strategic Housing Solutions website. We might be able to help you, because remember, I worked in the mortgage industry for almost 10 years. So I know what they do. And so I get hired a lot, especially when the bank is Wells Fargo, because I understand looking at their documents, and I find things that a lot of attorneys aren't looking for, especially because Wells Fargo will do what's called a document dump, literally 10,000 pages. I know right where to go to find that, and I can find the smoking gun. And so, and Liz and I have been doing several of these Zoom calls, and one time there was an attorney on there. He was like, I wish I would have known you existed, because they were up against Wells Fargo. So it's again, it's getting the word out there. We don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. There's templates that are out there, and let's look at the documents. Let's inform homeowners, because I always say that, you know what the scariest thing is to the bank? An informed homeowner. So if the homeowner knows who the investor is, and the homeowner knows what questions to ask, then they can do a lot to save their home themselves. But you have to be armed with information. And so that's part of what at Strategic Housing we're trying to get out there as well, is information.
Absolutely.
Could I just add something? Also, Jodi, talking about how things work, I'm sure that if someone were even to call real progressives and say, I want this information, you see, you call me and say, Liz, blah, blah, blah. You understand, of course. And so then I also want to be able to tell people like you just how we're working, so we can get this out all over the country, and we can start screaming and yelling about this injustice. So then they can call you, they can call me. They can also call us on our phone and leave a message. It's 301-291-5480. And also, as Beth said, on the website, shsmaryland.org, join a team, or you can leave a message as well.
Great. And we'll have that link in here as well in our description, so that people can click right on it wherever they're watching. And are there any webinars coming up soon, or is it something that they would be published on the information about it would be published on the website? Because I would like to go. I just want to learn about it more and more and more.
I don't think we have anything scheduled as of right now. I mean, we've had ones that are done in the past, and this is one of the things that setting up these teams, because I'm not that savvy when it comes to technical stuff. So I've done so many of these Zoom calls, but it never crossed my mind, oh, you probably should have been recording that. You need to post these ones that you've done. I didn't do that. So sometimes I feel like I'm giving the same seminar again. I've got, the PowerPoint that I use. So that's, as we move forward, Liz will say, look, if you're doing another seminar, you need to let our person that's handling the technology end of this know about this, and let's put it up on our website. Because we did a lot, actually. Liz and I both provided a lot of information in Maryland for the legislature. The banking lobby won everything by saying, oh, don't worry, the banks will do the right thing. But we were out there providing a lot of information, and I wish we would have saved all of that. Maybe it is somewhere in the internet. We can put it up there. But I can give you the information, but I'm not the person to save it and put it up on the website.
Yeah, that's how the teams work. And like I read so much, and I come across people like yourself, Jodi, and I thought, dog, I need to call her. That's how I finally got to you guys, I understand. And then I'll make a mental note, or another note on another scrap of paper to call this person. But I just don't have the time, as you know how that works. Now I've got my media team. So that I can say, we need to call this person, because they're on our side, and get them working with us. And it could be a professional person who has expressed an opinion about this on the press and television, but I just don't have the time, or I forget about it even. But now I can turn that information over to the media team, saying, I read about this, call this person, bring them to the fold. You see, and that's, like Beth said, how the teams work.
It's wonderful. I'm looking forward so much to seeing this grow and expand and really help people, who've been put in a really tough situation. So thank you both for everything that you're doing. And thank you for coming on today and sharing all that information with me and our
thank
audience.
you. I appreciate the opportunity to continue to get the word out.
Thank you. All right. And if you enjoyed this episode, as always, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have the means, we are grassroots funded. And so Patreon / Real Progressives is where you can donate to us. If you are interested in strategic housing solutions, which I know you are, go to the website, SHS Maryland. Where am I going?
SHS Maryland, all one word, .org.
Okay. All right. It was so much easier than I thought. Awesome. And we'll have the link in the description. And and we'll continue to keep up with you and check in with you every once in a while so that we can support you as much as we possibly can. It's amazing what you do.
Indeed.